So today's Cup of Joe lesson is about communication, about communicating clearly, and even more than that, about people remembering what we say, whether it's in written word, whether it's in spoken word. Many of you here I know are not only writing books, but you're writing email newsletters. Some of you are recording podcasts. Some of you are recording courses. Some of you are public speakers. No matter what you're doing, chances are, almost all of us here are communicating in some way or another. And I'm gonna guess that if you're anything like me, you want that communication to be remembered. You want it to be memorable. Many of you want to make a difference in people's lives, the people who are your readers, the people who are your audience. And so it's so important that we make sure not just that our words are entertaining, that they're well written, which we spend a lot of time, right, on the craft of writing and making sure that the style is engaging, and we worry that, is my style good enough? Is it all going to come through and so forth? But how often do you think about, are your points hitting home? Are people going to close your book? Are people going to walk out the exit door or whatever it is and remember what you said? How many of you think about that? Think about it as an audience member yourself. Think about the last time you went and heard a speaker. Maybe it was a pastor on Sunday morning church. Maybe it was a conference you attended. Think about how many times you've listened to something, walked out the back door, the second you got in the parking lot, you already forgot it. Now, my challenging question is, what's the point then? Is the point just to look back and go, wow, that was a really charismatic speaker? Or wow, they were a really talented writer. But I want you and I to have more. I want us to be able to be effective communicators. And one of the best books I've read on this is, I've got a link here for you. It's this book called Communicating for a Change: 7 Keys to Irresistible Communication. Now, it's written by Andy Stanley, and the book primarily talks to preachers. However, I think there are so many applications for anybody who's writing, who's speaking, who's doing any kind of communication here, and you can definitely apply it to your own strategy, which I've done, and I'm going to share with you a couple of the tips and the lessons that I've learned from this book, because I think it's just such a huge secret that nobody's talking about. He gives this example, which we can go through together. Now, he's given the example of as a public speaker. All right. Now, if you're not a public speaker, if you're not going to be getting on stage and communicating anything, just read between the lines. Do your best to apply this to your own style of whatever it is that you're communicating. All right. So he says this: when you step up to speak, can you tell me the address you're taking me to? Can you, in a few short words, like 1221 11th Avenue, eliminate all the other possible places my mind can wander over the next 30 minutes? When I get to where you want to take me, will I know I've been there? So think about your message. Think about whatever it is you're communicating. And, maybe, hey, even if you're a fiction writer and you're taking your audience on a journey, I thought that last question was interesting. When I get to where you want to take me, will I know I've been there? Interesting questions, right? And we know the mind does wander. So that definitely makes me lean in a little bit there too. I know I've felt it when I'm in the audience. Many times my mind wanders despite my best intentions to keep it engaged, but you know how it goes. Doesn't always work so good, right? There's something he recommends in this book that's totally different from what most people teach, and that is, can you focus on just one point? All right, now how many blog posts, how many sermons, how many professional speakers have you heard where they say, I'm going to give you 5 tips to X, Y, or Z, or my top 10 ways to do this thing or that thing? And what his challenge is in this book is, what if you eliminated all of those and just had one point? If you needed to talk about all 10, what if you separated them into 10 different talks, 10 different blog posts, 10 different chapters, and so forth? How much more effective would it be to just remember one main point? He gives this illustration. He says, all right, I'm going to give you a series of numbers and see if you can recall them back to me. So we can try a little test right here. All right, ready for it? All right, I'm going to give you a series of numbers: 42, 17, 11, 39, 76, 24, 9, 12, 84. All right, now who can repeat those back to me? And if you can do that, that is very, very impressive. And you should probably be in a different group doing something completely different because your mind works in ways that are different than most people's. I think we can all agree on that. Now, let's try this experiment again. You ready? This time I'm going to say a series of numbers and repeat back to me the number. 44, 44, 44, 44, 44. I know this is a silly illustration. I agree. But don't miss the point. If you give people too much to remember, they won't remember anything. I'm totally guilty of this because as a public speaker myself, I'm tempted to want to include so much in it because you want to over deliver, right? I want to give my audience so much and I've got so much to say. And I want to give and I want them to be like, that was worth my time. And for some reason, we think adding in so much more information makes it more worth it. I found the same thing working with course creators. There's this tendency to want to include so much in your course because you want it to feel like it's valuable. But what's valuable is the transformation. What's valuable is the result. What's valuable is the change that can take place in that person's life because of the information you gave them. And if they can't remember the information because you gave them too much, no change, no transformation, no result. And in courses, when it's too much information, people quit. Or worse, they refund and they never get the result because they're overwhelmed. So are we really doing a service to our audience by giving them so much? I would argue, and he does in the book, that we're doing them a disservice. They'll have forgotten all of your points before they're even out of the parking lot. Everything you say can be very interesting. Heck, it can even be life-changing, and many of you have life-changing messages. But if they can't remember it, then it's not going to change anybody's life. He says this in the book. It's like somebody said one time, if you're thirsty, you don't go to a fire hydrant. You'll drown yourself before you ever manage a single swallow. You've got to narrow the focus of your message to one point. Then everything else in the message supports that one point. It illustrates it, helps to make it more memorable. What if you built everything else around this one point? Interesting, right? And he talks about also creating a map. And there's many more things, but I'll finish with this point here. He says, what does a good map do? A good map will allow you to find the best and most effective course for arriving at your destination, right? There's a lot of different ways to get to a particular destination. See, a lot of folks, they think a good map shows all the possible options all the time. But if you think about it, that's actually a terrible map. Like when I'm pulling up my phone and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna pull up my Maps app. I want to find the destination. I want it to map out the quickest, most efficient, fastest way to my destination. I want it to navigate around the traffic jams if it can, or the construction zones, right? And so when I plug in my destination, I'm saying, hey, I want you to do all the thinking for me. I want you to do all the calculating for me and just show me the fastest route. That would be my map specific to where I am. The entire map, even though it could get so detailed, I could probably zoom out and see like the entire globe, right? The technology is crazy. You could see every single little road. I don't need to see every road. I don't need to see every twist and turn. That would only get me in trouble if I was trying to see all of the possible ways, right? Just show me the quickest route. Now, as communicators, we need to learn to narrow the destination. Narrow down, do the thinking for our audience, do the calculating for our audience, and show them a specific map for them. Your goal should be to get your audience to the final point of your application. So if you think about whatever it is you're trying to communicate, do you have a map? Do you have mile markers? Do you have transition points where your audience can easily follow along, where they can easily see where they're supposed to go? Will they remember the directions you gave them? Now, these are all just questions, and you know I love questions. So take a moment to just consider these. Think about it with your own style of communication. And I don't think this applies to every type of particular writing or every type of communication. But for those instances where you really want to communicate something that, especially if it's going to be life-changing information, especially if it's going to be results-oriented, or you're trying to help them with a transformation or anything like that, really stop and think about how you are communicating that. Can you narrow the focus? Can you make that map more specific? Instead of including 10 points, what's the one point they need to do? Or at least 1 point at a time. Don't try to give them a fire hose to drink out of. Have them take sips along the way. So that's something I've thought about quite often, and it's something I've actually applied in my own public speaking career, but I also try to apply it to everything I'm writing. All right, think about the emails you receive. Anybody ever received emails where they're asking you like so many questions, or they're trying to communicate so many different things? There's so many different links in the email that you're like, you don't even know what to do, and many times you close those out. So even in email communication, stop and think about, what's the one thing I need to communicate here? What's the one call to action that you want your audience to take? Many people, when they're marketing things via email, they make this mistake all the time. They include multiple calls to action. They're asking their reader to do so many things. Go check out this link. Go register over here for the webinar. Go do this. Oh, and then come back and leave a comment. No. One thing. Just pick one. So practice this. Maybe some of you are already really good at this, but if not, let me tell you, it does take some practice, because your temptation is going to be that more is better, and that's not always the case. So hopefully this was helpful. If you're interested more about learning more and going deeper, I'd highly recommend checking out the book. The first part of the book is like in a story based, and then the second part is actually more tactical. So it's one of those interesting books where it includes a story while you're learning, which I love those kind. It makes them a little bit more entertaining. But anyway, that's something that's been on my mind lately, and as you know, I like to just share and learn out loud. So hopefully you find that helpful. All right, Unchained Riders, big group hug. Virtual high fives all around. Don't forget, give yourself that well-deserved pat on the back. You are making a difference. Go and make the difference in the lives of others, but do it in a way that you communicate effectively, sharing one point at a time. Create that map. Think about the map, the journey that you're asking them to follow you on. It doesn't make sense. Is it easy to get to the destination? I hope you have a great rest of your day. Look forward to being back with you real soon. Until then, as always, I'll be cheering for you. All right. Bye, everyone.